Captain's log. Stardate something something. We've been flying through astro space for about, I'd say, 16 parsecs. Maybe getting past Rigel 5, here or there. And I gotta say, looks pretty cool. Now, you're on the Everything is Finally Gets Ruined podcast, and I'm your host, Tristan, as usual. This is my cool captain's voice. And with me, as always, Hassan, that guy over there.
Why does your captain voice sound like you should probably be in jail for sex crimes?
Because I have an erotic captain's voice, Hassan. Some say downright sexual.
I just... You wear pants while you're captaining, right?
I can neither confirm nor deny this.
Okay. Second question.
Yeah.
You actually went to captaining school, right?
They have a school for that? Don't think so. It's like trying to tell a leaf what to do, Hassan. Sometimes you gotta just let things flow.
Yeah, I'd like to get off the ship.
Well, that's just too flippin' bad, because we are in, like I said, astro space right now, baby. We cannot let anybody off this ship, for they will die in the frozen reaches of around this planet.
Yeah, that still sounds... I'll choose that. That sounds better. I'll choose that.
Well,
I'll take death.
It's time to shoot yourself into the airlock, then, if that's the case.
Okay, great. Yeah, just point me towards the airlock. So...
We hadn't installed it yet, to be honest. It's kind of a capsule ship.
Of course you wouldn't have thought it.
Essentially, if you open the airlock, then I get shot out as well. But what we could do is just have a fun, sexy time being together.
Does it have to be sexy? Can we drop the sexy?
Fine, it doesn't have to be sexy. We can just,
thank God.
It's fine. Okay, fine. Look, I thought we were just going to have just a little fun. Just a little fun. Maybe a little, like, ooh, let's just, talk about, I don't know, the fun things we do, sexy-wise. And then we'd be like, yeah.
I feel like I've made myself clear ample times on this. I only want sexy times if there are aliens involved.
Well, I mean, I assume, yeah.
Okay, well, that wasn't clear to me.
Where else are you going to have sexy times with? It's just aliens.
I don't want humans. Look, every time... Who plays Mass Effect and chooses to romance a human? You only romance the aliens. Come on.
Boring people. Boring people choose the humans. You gotta bone Garrus, you gotta bone Tally. If I could have boned Rex,
Liara,
I will.
I hate they won't let you.
Fucking shit out of Rex.
Thane,
yeah. He's got a dark past, He's a bit of an edgelord, but he's out for his kid. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually like his romance.
He's good, yeah. I think he's a good character. I think
he's a widower.
Widower.
That's different than anyone else in that series. Yeah. His fault.
Oh, that's right. I can't remember what happened to him.
Well, Tristan, the thing is, we're actually not here to talk about Mass Effect.
Well, why are we here to talk about Renaissance? Some stupid other crap?
Yeah, actually. We're here to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Oh, okay, so it's a Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
Sure. Ready to go to sleep over here?
Tristan.
Wow,
I've got some news.
Whoa, what? What's the news?
They might have finally made a good Star Trek.
I mean, I haven't. Look, here's the thing. I don't hate Star Trek. I just don't. I haven't liked Star Trek since the '60s. So,
Tristan, you weren't alive in the '60s, so
well, this is true.
Also, what are you? Are you trying to sit here and tell me you don't like the Next Generation?
I haven't watched much of it, to be perfectly fair. But
what about Voyager?
Voyager's also okay. It's got kind of that old Star Trek vibe a little bit. But I like old Star Trek where it's really campy and kind of shitty.
Oh, then okay. I've got some bad news. You might not like Star Trek Strange New. We'll get into it.
Okay.
One of my complaints. But Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We're only talking about season 1. Season 2 has actually just started recently, but it started in 2022. It's technically a spin-off from Star Trek Discovery.
Okay, because I've watched a bit of Discovery and I didn't like that too much.
So it's weird that they call it a spinoff because I watched season 1 and a bit of season 2 of Discovery.
Right, yeah.
That's a very different show. It's way darker and grittier.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
It has more of this, overarching plot of the actual crew has a goal, and more than like in Voyager, it has, a goal to it of they want to get
Voyager
back to Earth and they need to stop the Borg in the last, I think, 2 seasons.
It's Lost in Space.
But it doesn't really have much of an overarching plot. And personally, I prefer my Star Trek that way. You have recurring characters, right? It's not an anthology series. It's not, something like Twilight Zone. When we think about contemporaries of, or at least close to contemporaries of the original, right?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
What was it called? Masters of... not Master of Science Fiction, was it?
I think that's right. I want to say that's correct.
Like my head, I'm like Master of Horror Fiction, but I don't think that's right.
I mean, there were Masters of Horror, but that was a whole different thing.
Yeah, but it's it's not anthology like that. But episode to episode, you could kind of go, I'm gonna watch Star Trek episode 26, and then I'm gonna watch episode 42.
Yeah,
you'd probably be fine 9 out of 10 times. So that something that happened in a past episode, not going to be critical generally to understanding future episodes. And Star Trek Strange New Worlds isn't quite that. You couldn't quite watch it out of sequence. That would cause a little bit of problem. But in general, it's not really trying to have, say, an end goal of what the ship is trying to do. It's really just out there doing Star Trek stuff, engaging in battle.
Okay, as you do.
What's the opening? The Final Frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no one's gone before. It's doing all that stuff,
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I quite like it for that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's also it's weird. So it's not gritty like Discovery was.
Okay.
And it is going for a little bit more of a and this is going to make it sound way worse than it is. You can definitely tell it has been influenced by what Disney / Marvel / Joss Whedon have done for kind of writing, where basically everything from Deep Space Nine and before it, Star Trek, it tended to be very serious. There were fun moments, characters would pal around with each other, but they weren't necessarily wisecracking. Like you had I can't think of his name, but the Cardassian DS9, he had this very wry, dry sense of humor.
I didn't watch DS9, but I think I know what you mean.
I can't think of his name. I want to say it starts with a G, but I could be completely wrong. But this the character writing in this, it feels way more just reflective of modern writing and modern kind of sensibilities of how people should act, and the way that friends will sort of joke around with each other. And so we'll get into character in a moment, but like a pretty good example is So this has some characters you would be familiar with from the original. So Uhura is there.
Oh, Uhura.
But
Okay.
this is Captain Pike. So it's before Kirk takes over. So it's she's new to this ship. She's still an ensign, and so she gets all the new recruits, they get to go have dinner in the captain's cabin one time. So she shows up and she's all dressed up in her sort of Starfleet. I forget what you call your like military dress attire. I feel like there's a term for that.
I can't remember. And then the rest of it's called your kit, but I can't remember everything else.
Yeah, so like she's wearing that and she shows up, and then the helmsman is there. She's just like wearing a t-shirt, leather jacket, some jeans. She's like, ha ha, you fell for it. It's a prank we pull on all the ensigns. The captain does do. And so like she walks in wearing this. The captain's just like, they got you with that one, huh? Don't worry, come on in. I'm cooking up a meal here. Like,
that's fun.
That's fun. Like you wouldn't see that out of the Next Generation or Voyager, right? They were written more like 1950s and 60s sci-fi, where acting was acting. And so it's nice to have a Star Trek that it's pulled that back a little. It still has that sensibilities of that sort of 50s 60 really intriguing sci-fi to it, but I think that part is very interesting of it. And so getting into the actual setting and characters, so this is set before the Kirk stuff, so it is Christopher Pike is your captain, and I'm not an original Star Trek guy, so a lot of the original stuff for me, like it having Pike, doesn't do anything. I don't care about Pike at all as it like, oh man, they're referencing him from the old one.
Yeah, I mean, he was barely in like the old original Star Trek. I think he was just in passing, so...
or for example, his number two, his number one, Una Chin Riley. She's from the original, apparently. I'm just like, I don't care, and you don't need to know that.
Una Chin Riley. All right, I don't recall her, so
she probably only shows up in like 1-2 episodes, right? Because her whole thing was she was the number one before Kirk got there. So
it's her ref here. If anybody's viewing this. If this goes up. Okay. Yeah, like
Uhura is there.
Sure.
Spock is there, Scotty has like a vocal only cameo in the last episode because it gets in some time travel stuff.
Ooh. Right away, huh?
No. So like the only actual recognizable, like really named characters from the previous would be Spock and Uhura.
Okay.
Spock is actually probably one of my complaints about this, in the sense that pretty much ever since that first J.J. Abrams movie, the 2009 one that I looked it up. Apparently it's just called Star Trek.
It is.
Terrible name.
Wait, hold on. I mean, it could have been called something else, but...
Well, terrible name, because imagine if they came out with a movie and they just called it Star Wars. You're like, Star Wars what? No, it's just Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, that was the original Star Wars.
How am I supposed to differentiate this from all the other movies and the franchise? Like, why would you just call it Star Trek?
Well, it was a full
By the point,
reboot.
there's like 8 things called Star Trek.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, did you see Star Trek? The Star Trek movie. Which one? There's like 6 of them.
This is why we do the complicated thing of putting the date at the very end in brackets. Like, Star Trek 2009.
I hate that. Don't. Just give me a subtitle.
We gotta stop doing this as a society.
I don't care.
We gotta stop doing this as a society because like this is a thing only for people.
Don't worry, Mortal Kombat 1 won't be confusing when talking about Mortal Kombat.
No, fuck off with that. I hate things. God.
It'd be funny if they called it original Mortal Kombat.
Like they should.
Then imagine you're like,
that's the
oh,
thing.
did you play original Mortal Kombat? Oh, the one that just came out? No, original. But since like 2001, the series has been, speaking of Star Wars, it has been too obsessed with Spock, and he has taken on a Skywalker like,
you don't say,
mythos to him, to where he is this super critical, omni-important character, and I hate it.
Speaking of the 2009 movie, did you see what they did to Spock in that movie? I mean, like they made him super important, and then also like because he did the time travel thing, like they put like Leonard Nimoy.
I vaguely remember that movie. That movie was fine.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it, but yeah,
like it's good, but also who cares about that movie today, right?
But that's better than the second one, so yeah.
I will say, though, a lot of the newer characters I do really like. So I'm going to consider him new, but like Christopher Pike, I think he's really good. I quite enjoy him as Captain. He's
got a great look.
It's more of a He what's the phrase? It's like he looks like he's straight out of something casting. I forget what it's called.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Monster.
I'm doing so many of these today. He's a really fun captain. He's a very jovial one. We also have additional characters like Christine Chapel, who she's a nurse on the Enterprise that seems to be in love with Spock. But there's some fun elements with her character. We have Laan Noonien Singh, she's chief of security, and she has sort of a like Worf vibe to her, where she's a little bit more strict, more aggressive, and it's interesting to have her against the rest of the cast being this, very serious. Also, that's blurry. No. I can't see that.
Straight of central casting.
Central casting. Yes. That's it. Yes. Yeah. Also, her last name Noonien Singh. She's part of Khan's whole. I never really cared for the original, but like he was cloning himself or some genetic alteration. I forget what it was, but basically she's a descendant of him, and that plays into her whole conflict, and that why she just doesn't take things kind of. She doesn't like to joke around or have fun. There's actually an episode where
who likes joking anymore,
where her and Number One find out that like there's this thing where all the ensigns have like ensign bingo, where they have to try and go do a bunch of things, and they catch two of the ensigns as they're trying to sneak out in spacesuits and touch like the oldest part of the ship, and they let slip, like, I forget what their nickname is, but it's something like, the boring duo. Like, we're not bored. What are they talking? And then it's them just palling around doing this bingo, being like, we did it. Suck it, ensign. See, we proved we're fun. Like our nicknames.
Yep. Totally fun. Good job, guys.
There's Dr. Joseph Mabenga. He's probably one of the best characters in the series. He's a good example of where there are problems, which we'll get into shortly. His main thing is that his daughter has a disease, and so he's basically just keeping her in the oh my god, why can't I think of what they're called right now? The transporters.
Oh, transporters.
He's just keeping her buffered in there so that she doesn't, time basically doesn't move for her.
Is this man Mr. Freeze? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But a doctor, unlike Mr. Freeze, who's clearly not a doctor.
Well, scientist actually in this case. So,
yeah. See, not a real doctor. Come on.
Well, no, he has a PhD, so he is a doctor actually.
Yep.
Gotta say.
Might as well be a doctor of economics. Come on. No, any doctorate's a real doctorate. We also have Hemmer, a blind Andorian.
Blind Andorian, okay. Huh.
Yeah. That's most of the cast and that you really need to know. Now, where I have some complaints with this, and you had actually hinted at, because my number one complaint in this show is that the production values per episode are too high. I wish that they spent less money per episode on this show. And it's fun. Yeah, the like tentacle guys. They showed up somewhat in the the first series, and then they showed up a ton in the really bad one with Captain Archer. Whatever that
Enterprise?
Was that also called Enterprise? Yes,
Enterprise.
Yes, it was called Enterprise, right.
Yep.
God, that one sucks.
Okay, I will give it to Enterprise. That is mostly not a good show. However, it does have some good episodes. So,
sure.
Credit where credit's due. It does have a couple of good ones. Otherwise, yeah, it pretty much sucks.
But the thing that I... And it's not just Star Trek. There are other shows that I've noticed and felt this on, but in Star Trek, it's really noticeable, and it's something that has also been a discussion with the ongoing, or currently at least, ongoing writer strikes, where it feels like because they're giving it these higher production values that we're getting less episodes. So there's only 10 episodes in the first season, and the second season the same. And
yeah, okay.
For Star Trek, that's just not what I want, right? Where
you
have this...
Didn't he do the same thing with Discovery as well? Where it was like less episodes with more like high quality episodes, you know?
That's a good question. Let me just quickly check. I think that was the case, although I think it might have had... Yeah, so it has slightly more episodes. So season 1 was 15, 2 was 14, 3 and 4 were 13, 5 looks like it's going to be 10. And the thing about that is, so it's like, I mean, technically 50% more episodes. Still, I wouldn't say quite enough. I think it's true of...
Yeah, for Discovery it was like, 15, 14, 13, 13, 10. Huh.
Yeah. We've sort of... And this is going to sound bad, but like, in some ways, HBO and the pursuit of a lot of television to be HBO-like, I think is damaging TV. And I think Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a good example of that, where this show would be just as good if the production values were a little bit lower. If they said, hey, it's fine. We don't need to like worry about having the CGI look really good, because it does. It's really good CGI in it.
I mean, just the screenshot above my head right now, but you can't see Hassan, but I can see it. Just the screenshot. It says Hassan smells. Yeah, I know. Just the screenshot that's above my head right now on the video. It's very pretty. It's a very pretty screenshot.
It's a good-looking show. It's got some fantastic cinematography, but I wish that it was a little bit more of...
A little rougher, maybe? Yeah.
Not just rougher, but like, I wish, hey, just, a little more TV quality where like, no, it's okay. Sometimes just have kind of a straight on camera shot where you're not, trying to have dramatic lighting, where, it's okay to just have, the set be not like the most detailed thing. That's fine for what this is, because this isn't, or I shouldn't say this, but to me, that's not what Star Trek is. Star Trek is, about these sci-fi stories, about these intriguing, the Temerians and Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra, Shaka when the walls fell, all that. It's the next generation, people who only talk in references, basically.
Those people.
I shouldn't say references, allegories. It's like one of the most famous episodes out of TNG, or at least the most memed.
Okay, sure.
And I wish that they spent a little less on the episodes and gave us more episodes, so that they had more time to flesh out the characters, to spend more time with those characters. Just give us more episodes. It's a very difficult line, I think, to walk when it comes to how much content you give to people in terms of how many seasons, how many episodes, not overstaying your welcome. I think a lot, we've had this discussion. A lot of TV shows just go on for too long. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one. Probably should have ended 2 seasons.
Yeah, I was kind of cool with how far it went. I was fine with it mostly, but you're right. You probably should.
I still enjoyed it, but by end of season 4,
it
started to feel like more of the same. like Dexter, I think, is a prime example of a show.
Dexter's a great example. Yeah.
I watched. I think that show had. There were the last two seasons. I basically didn't watch.
No,
I
same.
pulled that cord and I went, you know what? I can tell this show's going downhill. I'm out.
Season
And
1,
I'm
2,
glad
and 3.
I did.
Really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I think I watched
5,
season
not much.
4 and 5. I think I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I do think there's also a desire to have more episodes of certain kinds of shows. That,
Yes.
hey, some shows should have more than just 10 seasons an episode. And that one, I think it's not just HBO. You can probably also blame it on like Netflix and streaming.
Yeah, probably.
And this show has given me this, it's a strange wish of like, I'm not saying I want to go back to, Everybody Loves Raymond or like King of Queens, right?
Or
I'm not
do
saying
you? Do you want that?
no. I'm not saying I want more the stupid nerd, the Big Bang Theory.
God, no.
I don't want
No.
that. But I do think that I wish TV went and made stuff a little more TV, like a Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or I haven't watched it, but I know people talk really highly of Abbott Elementary, and
yeah, Elementary's
everything
a
I've seen
good
of that,
example.
that looks like a TV show,
Yeah, it
right?
does.
It looks like it has TV quality. I don't mean that in
not a
a
bad
condescending way at all.
Everybody got high production values for like no reason at all. It's not even Game of Thrones started off with like high production values. It didn't even end with high production values. But like they gave him a good camera at some point. At some point, all TV crews got a hold of the really good cameras, and they went like, well, we can't shoot just anything on these cameras. It has to be the most interesting thing.
Yeah,
so why would you waste the shots? Let's make sure everything else looks fucking shiny and pretty. But I mean, like, we don't all want that. Like, you don't need to shoot. Like,
not
Married with
everything
Children.
needs
Like
to look like a
whatever Tim Allen's working on.
Modern
Family. There it is.
Sucks.
You don't need to shoot Modern Family on a high budget camera, Tim Allen. Just don't do it. I don't even know if he does or not. But don't do it, man.
Is he involved in that show?
It's
Isn't that
it's
over?
his
I
show.
don't know.
Yeah, I think it's still going on.
Are you sure you mean Modern Family and not something else?
I mean, Modern Family. Yes.
No, he can't be. That show's from like 2010.
I could be wrong. Not
I
sure
think you're
now.
thinking something else.
I'm
right?
looking it up. Bring up the
Modern
old
Family's
Firefox
the one about
fact
like
checker.
there's the goofball dad and his wife, as well as the wife's dad and her gay brother, and they're all a couple. I actually watched several seasons of that show. It's quite good. If it's the show I'm thinking of, could be wrong, but
Apparently, I think it ended 2020. Okay, good point.
yeah, okay, that sounds like the show I'm thinking of. But Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. The other problem with it having fewer episodes is that it often means that in individual episodes, because it's a Star Trek, because it is, a ship that has a good, let's just, I'm just going to do a quick count here of like the sort of main recurring big cast members. So you have Captain Pike, Spock, Nurse Chapel, Security Officer Lon, Uhura. You have Ortegas, the helmsman, Dr. Mabenga, Hammer, and Unich and Riley. So you have at least 9 main cast members. That's without, obviously you're going to have, hey,
It's a few.
here's this week's, guest person, right? Here's this captain from this other ship, or here's, this alien race we're trying to help kind of thing. And so that's, a decent sized cast. Like that's more than Friends had, right? That show only had 6 main members, and, those episodes were mostly just dedicated to them.
Look at them now.
And so you end up with these individual episodes where it's like 3 different story beats happening, and it feels like too much is sometimes going on in an individual episode that it's trying to progress.
Yeah, they lost the art of the A plot, B plot,
individual.
they're doing A, B, C, D, and D.
and so it's not just like there's too many things happening in one episode. It's also, so talking about Dr. Mabenga, so his daughter and her issues around her sickness, we don't find that out until I believe it's episode 3, Ghost of Illyria. And then episode 8, which is probably my favorite episode. It's this really good episode where so he always reads like stories to his daughter, and they're usually these like fantasy stories. They enter this gaseous cloud, and he basically is getting off the transporter. And as he gets off the transporter, everybody is dressed up in like sort of aiming for, fantasy, knights and swords kind of attire. Yeah, and he's supposed to be the king. But it's all taking place on the ship. And one of the reasons my favorite is it's also the one where it's the most TV, because what they've done is they've just gone, well, it's still just the Enterprise. So we're just going to, like stick up, hey, here's this, it's like it's a stage play where it's like, hey, this needs to look like Castle. This needs to look like Castle doors. So it's just going to be, a painted wooden castle door, like it was a stage. Or we just have these, plants hanging off of the like hallways to represent a forest.
Perfect.
Because how else do you do that on the ship?
Yeah.
And I love it. It's fantastic.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, but why is the ship like this? And eventually realize, oh, it's his daughter, and this gaseous cloud is sentient, blah, blah, blah. And basically his daughter's storyline gets wrapped up. So we find her in episode 3, and by episode 8, it's done. It's like, oh, hey, maybe this should have been like a 26 episode season, and hey, it should have been like episode 24 this got resolved, so that it wasn't just like, hey, there's like maybe 4 episodes total that his daughter's in. I don't even think it's that. I think it's more like 3 that his daughter matters in it.
Question for you. What's the runtime of a typical episode, roughly? An hour?
So it varies. It's some of them are a little bit on the shorter side, around 50 minutes. Some of them are an hour, so a little bit of variety there. But they are longer than a traditional 30-minute episode TV series, which is usually 26 minutes after commercial breaks, what have you.
Yeah, sure.
But that doesn't help it, right? Because they're still individual episodes, so it's still 3 episodes with this kid, and then they're gone. And if they had more episodes, it'd give them more room to breathe. There would be more chances of, hey, we can have the daughter show up more often. We can interweave this story into it a little bit more than if they had tried to do that in every single episode. That it would just feel overwhelming in that, because
of course,
hey, why every single episode does she have to be here? Oh, well, it's because we want to resolve it by episode 8.
Fine, I guess. So, try and resolve the plot lines.
It feels like, hey, spend a little bit less per episode. Give me more episodes, and just can we please go back to streaming? Has just done so much damage.
Streaming's
to
fucked it. It fucked
TV.
it all.
Somehow, can we please go back to more syndicated TV and how it handled it? That would be just
not
so much better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's the thing. I fully agree. Like, something I realize in... Okay, one of the arguments... I think I said this in a previous episode. One of the arguments I've seen for why shows are now so long but so few episodes is that because you get more out of an hour-long episode than you do out of like 2 half-hour-long episodes. And I'm just kind of like, sure. I actually disagree with that entirely, because I think it depends on... It's kind of like writing a poem. You can have like this big long epic if you really want to, or a couple of like quick sonnets are more digestible, and maybe you get more out of them depending on what you're going for. So compare Star Trek, like compare. Let's compare the Stranger Things. How that was like 2 hours long in the last episode of season 5, whatever it was, 4 or 5, whatever. I think it was 4. I think it was 4. It doesn't matter.
I didn't even make it through season 3, so
fair enough. Compare that. It's like 2 hours long. It's like feature-length long episode of Stranger Things. And I got like, it's a decent ending. But I mean, like, I just watched like the last episode of season 2 of Vinland
aren't they making
Saga.
like another season?
Oh
of
yeah,
it?
buddy, they are.
Not even an ending.
No, I ended that season, but not an ending.
Sure.
But I just watched the final final episode of season 2 of Vinland Saga and episode 23 and 24, and both of those are so jam packed, full of good content and great storyline and characterization. And it's just like I don't see the argument anymore. Like, the argument for why shows have to be so long is just not good enough for me. So, like...
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think that
not
a show
just TV
like...
shows, movies.
Movies too.
I saw a thing recently about, who I think it's Ridley Scott, is doing, like, a Napoleon movie. And it was like, the runtime is 2 hours and 26 minutes. And I went, so it's not that long. And I went, that's 2.5 hours. This is how broken movies are right now. I'm going, 2.5 hours. That's not too bad.
It's not 3.5 hours. Perfect. Yeah, I can watch that. Yeah,
it's an Avatar.
It's at a point where 2.5 hours. Look, at least RRR had a fucking intermission.
I haven't watched that.
It hasn't.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to say anything at this point. If anything over... Let's say 2 hours and 15 minutes intermission. Nope, you have to have an intermission, and just we need to draw a line in the sand and just force these filmmakers. Now, I will say I don't mind that the episodes are kind of an hour long, because that is what TNG was, and that felt fine, right? But I also think sometimes some of these episodes might actually be fine if they were only a half hour.
You're probably right.
And I never want to necessarily get like super restrictive and say, no, TV only has to be a half hour, or they always have to do an hour. I think giving some freedom.
You gotta have freedom. I agree with that.
It's good, but I also think you do need to have some restrictions, and that no restrictions had led to a lot of the problems we have of just TV shows have gotten too long, unnecessarily long in a lot of cases.
Ridiculous. Look, I will give it at least... Okay, Ted Lasso did this. I'll give them at least where they're going, is they're ending the show. They're ending Ted Lasso. So that's the reason why, like, the last episode of season 3 is an hour and 15 minutes or something like that long. And it's like, okay, sure, why not?
That's a little long, but for an ending,
the final episode. Okay, sure.
That's, not that terrible, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's a little over an hour. Yeah, I can do that.
Exactly. We're also talking about a show that grew from like a 23-minute episode length to eventually 45s in season 2, and then in season 3 it's hours long.
Skip the parts where it's not murder. I'm sure I can shave a couple minutes off it.
Again, not a lot of murder in Ted Lasso. Just gonna put that out there.
Okay, well then it's gonna be a short episode, and that's their fault.
There you go. Yeah, but so I mean, like, okay, getting off that, Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. Like, so my main question here, because you're invoking the original Star Trek, which had a lot of Strange New Worlds. How much does this show fall into like the Strange New Worlds category? Like, how many did they do? Like, are they all very unique? Are they all kind of like, whatever? Like, what are we talking here?
So that's a difficult one to answer, in that it definitely has some new worlds and some very interesting ones. For example, at one point they come across a planet where this comet is going to smash into the planet. And so they beam down. It's like Uhura, Spock, and it's actually Captain Kirk's brother is on the Enterprise.
Why? Good quick question. Why did they beam down Uhura? She's a communications officer. She's an ensign
because she's an ensign, so it's this whole thing of like, well, the ensigns have to go through all of the roles on the ship, and they all have to experience an away mission.
Right, yeah.
And so they beam down on this comet, and they find a structure on it, and then when they're looking into it, accident happens. They get stuck down there, but on the Enterprise, they get contacted by this alien ship that's more powerful and advanced than them, and the alien ship is like, "Hey, that comet is the life giver, whatever its name is, I forget. They're like, it's our god. It is an all-knowing being that will either create or take life as it sees fit. Do not try and interfere with it, or we will destroy you.
Don't you fucking touch my comet. Don't you fucking touch my comet. I'll kill you all."
Yes, basically. So, episode progresses. Uhura manages to save the day by using her linguistic skills to read this thing and realizing it's a song, and she communicates with the comet. And so they eventually get beamed back. They manage to, and so the comet's going to crash on this planet. They manage to deflect it, but they do it sneakily so that the aliens don't know. And they're like, haha, see, we were right. Even though it was going to crash into it, our god decided to be sparing and kind.
What do you say?
So here's the thing, though. So it's a desert planet.
Yeah.
As part of stopping this planet, they end up like, I forget exactly how they do it, but part of the like comet's tail ends up falling down, the tail full of water.
Sure.
And then Uhura's like, "Hey, so we look back at some of the details from like what we were like. I think like they picked up a signal or something off this comet, and 8 hours before we beamed onto the comet and we like did our whole plan, it had like communicated to us through its like secret coding that it was going to drop its tail off, and it knew all the stuff that we would do, and it's this really fun thing of like, oh, maybe this comet actually was this all-powerful, all-knowing sentient thing. And so it has these,
all right.
Yeah, it has these, heady sci-fi stories, like back in the day.
Sure, I like that. Okay.
Trying to think of like, or there's another, sometimes it has like weird fun ones where like Spock and his fiance, they like swapped brains. And it happens when Spock is supposed to be involved in basically getting this new species to join the Federation, and his wife is supposed to be dealing with like she does like mental rehab stuff for people, basically having them sort of learn the ways of Vulcan so that they live a logical life and they can get back to normal.
So logical. Yes, cool.
But like the species that they're interacting with is one that it basically just adapts and goes to an extreme of the species that's interacting with. So one of the, I forget what it was. It's like the Federation sent one species early on and they acted one way. And then they send another species who tend to be more aggressive. And so this other species is just shouting at the ambassador, being like, "How dare you talk to us?" Blah blah blah. They send, they send Spock, and so then the aliens were going to show up being super logical, and basically Captain just figures out, and they're like, "So why should we join you?" Captain's like, "You know what? Probably shouldn't join us."
Yeah.
It's like, look, you join the Federation, what do you get? Sure, the better trade deals. And we're going to agree that we'll defend you. Yes. But you're in your Klingon space, and if the Klingon are going to attack you because you joined us, we're not going to be able to show up in time. Yeah, your planet might actually face serious consequences from this. And the Admiral's like, what are you doing? He's like, no, I figured it out. They just want someone to just be real with them. So they just take on the attitude and the caricatures of that species.
Did Pike like turn his chair around and like sit backwards like, here, let's rap?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's like that. But it's this really interesting and cool thing. And so it has these things where it maybe like doesn't have those things is when it does try and be a little bit more actiony. Like the Gorn come up a couple of times, and like in one of them,
yeah, okay,
they're the alien ones from the original, the lizardy people. In this one, they're more like
the
like
favorite
aliens, like the xenomorphs, and so they literally have an episode where, hey, this Federation ship had crashed on this ice planet. Group of them all go down. Oh no, the Gorn had infected some of the survivors, and now they're gonna kill us. And
hell yeah, the Gorn.
But the problem is they're literally like xenomorphs, where they're running around, they're hyper fast, and they're tiny, and they're getting through like the Jeffries tubes and stuff.
Yeah,
and that one just it doesn't work as well. It's like, this is more action than kind of dry sci-fi of Star Trek. So sometimes it fails, and it rather than being about Strange New Worlds, it's just trying to be a drama, trying to be actiony, and that's definitely where it's at its weakest. That's definitely where I wish that, again, going back to, hey, if it had lower production values, they probably would have had to do the Gorn differently. They probably couldn't go, oh, the Gorn, they're these hyper fast skittering around species. Hey, we need to make them more, it's a guy in a rubber suit, so, or wearing makeup and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to write our story in that way. And again, I don't want to get super restrictive and say they're never allowed to have a CGI species because it ruins everything.
But it does, though. No, okay.
But allowing those high production values in the CGI allow them to go very actiony, and I think that kind of hurt it, and that made it feel like it didn't work so well.
Yeah.
And I just quickly want to touch on the last episode. And one of the things that I had mentioned with Pike, I forget what they call it, but at some point he basically touched this crystal from this alien species that sort of let him see into the future, effectively. And he saw his own death, where the ship comes under attack, and a bunch of ensigns end up dying. And I think it's not just ensigns, but it's like 10 or 12 crew members end up dying. I think he dies as well, or he's at least sort of horrifically scarred. And so the final episode is his future self got sent back in the past to be like, look, you changed things because you knew what the future was, but you messed it up. Because basically what ends up happening is there's this instance a couple years in the future where it's basically the first time that the Federation actually gets to see and interact with the Romulans. And effectively, he's not supposed to be captain.
Right,
this is where it should be James T. Kirk is captain. But because he avoided this accident, he's still captain, screws everything up, causes a war between them.
Yep.
And
all right,
this episode has good elements and moments to it where it's one of the fun things is he's basically like, well, I'm and he's not actually in the future. It's that his future self gave him another one of these crystals so that he can just see the future again.
Yeah, again, weird time travel crazy shit. So yeah,
basically. Yeah. But as part of that, he's like, well, I have to be myself. So even though I know a bad thing is going to happen, I can't act in a way that I wouldn't normally act in. And it has this real heavy, like, him constantly going like, so is this the thing? Or is this the thing? Okay, what's the... what am I going to do wrong here that
weird
might cause... How can I change it? Yeah, and it's some good sci-fi writing. Where I have some problems with it is this is definitely another episode where, because of his actions, Spock dies, and that screws up everything because Spock is so important.
Always fucking dies.
Kirk also shows up, and it's
Who's playing
It's
Kirk?
kind of interesting. I forget the guy's name. It's not like...
Is it Chris Pine?
No.
Oh.
That would be funny, though.
That would have been really funny. It would have tied like the J.J. Abrams universe and this one together like really well.
Ironically, I actually think the guy who plays Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, would have made a really good Kirk.
Yeah, he's got the Kirk look. I agree.
Yeah. The other guy, he's not a bad Kirk, but he's a very different Kirk. He's a way more, oddly enough, a way more just rude and aggressive Kirk, which I kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
But like, that's kind of the problem with this episode is, it is that thing of, we've had this discussion around Star Wars where it's an entire galaxy. There are all these different species. There are all these different stories and worlds you can tell. And to kind of end it on this, hey, here's Kirk and here's Spock and here's why they're super duper important. And this is a prequel series. So, of course, it has to...
Yes, of course.
I don't want to say it has to have those things because it doesn't. It could have just not had them. But it can't pretend like that's not the future, right? It can't sit here and all of a sudden go, oh yeah, who cares? This Kirk guy dies. Because then you're like, wait, so now this is a totally different timeline. It's not just a prequel, which that's not what this is trying to be. It's not trying to, reset the Star Wars timeline. It's not trying to, change some of the standards of what Star Trek is. So I'm okay that they show up. I just don't want that to become this ongoing. Again, we have a crew member who is a descendant of Khan. In theory, Khan might show up at some point. I mean,
in theory,
because it's really supposed to be.
Wait, who's the descendant of Khan?
La'an Noonien Singh. She is the chief security officer, played by Christina Chong.
Wild name. Okay, sure, cool. All right,
I like it.
Yeah, it's good.
But that's kind of my... So, again, this is season 1 so far. I really hope that season 2 doesn't lean into more of that. I hope it doesn't go, hey,
I hope so, yeah.
Here's... And there are other characters from the original or the... I don't know what they call sort of the expanded universe beyond the books and all that, where the transport officer, I don't know if he has a last name. I'm pretty sure they just call him Kyle. He is
Kyle, the transport officer,
a somewhat iconic character who would show up in, I think, multiple episodes. I read about it, but kind of in one ear out the other while reading it, because I was going, I don't care about any of this stuff from the past in this wider universe. Yeah, I'm not going to blame anyone who does.
Yeah, of course, same. But
but it has characters like that. I'm trying to forget. There's somebody else who shows up that's sort of a similar. Hey, this character is just a minor role in this, but if you know about the original, they're super important. And then in this other thing, they did these things, and so far, it really hasn't tried to make you feel that way. It hasn't tried to go, hey, look, it's Kyle. It's the guy from this that you love. No.
It's Kyle. Everyone loves Kyle.
But that last episode, brought in Kirk. It hammers on that. Here's why Spock's so important. And I'm mostly just hoping that's not where season 2 goes. That it doesn't lean super into a lot of that. It doesn't go, oh, by the way, here's Khan. Oh, by the way, here's this super important, Klingon from the originals and all that stuff. I hope it is willing to be more of its own thing and go off and have more new worlds and not just be the stuff that we are familiar with and have seen so many times. And maybe my greatest fear of, God, please, just, even though Star Trek has had these before, please don't make this a multiverse thing.
Well,
for the love of God, I don't need.
I wrote that, Hassan. I wrote that. So I don't know if they're doing this for sure, but the big thing that everybody's trying to do is a multiverse. Nerds love multiverses. Didn't you know that? They love that shit. Marvel, DC, Star Wars.
I don't think Star Wars has done multiverse yet.
Yeah, they're starting. They're working on it. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they're meshing Elseworld stuff. That would be Star Wars non-canon stuff you'd read on like Wikipedia into Star Wars canon proper. Yeah, Star Trek is primed for a multiversal thing though because it has time travel, it has alternating universes.
Technically, does have multiverse already because they reference. I'm pretty sure the like wormhole event from the J.J. Abrams stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
But they mention it in passing twice, and that's it. What I'm hoping for is they just don't go more into that, and they're not heavier handed on that stuff because
it might be.
I don't need it. I think this show works very well. Even though it's a spin-off, it works very well as a mostly standalone thing with its own characters without having to build into this larger, greater narrative thing and tie in and interweave on everything else Star Trek.
We don't.
I just don't need that.
Yeah, that's the thing. We'll get in. You know what? I'm going to do an episode about this at some point, but we don't need everything to be a multiverse thing, especially if it's a nerdy project. The thing that execs thinks that people will eat up multiversal stuff. So I really hope this is not one of those because I think even at this point, at the what I would say is a very early stage of the multiverse-ness encapsulating entertainment, I think it's at a stage where it's beyond the fun aspect and more of just a desperate, cloying, we gotta get your money aspect.
Just wait until somehow American Hollywood execs find out about isekais as the next thing, and then...
Oh, they'll get there.
It's just gonna be, here's the Marvel isekais. No. I was just a normal office worker, and then I fell into the Marvel universe and became Spider-Man, the TV series.
Look, I'm assuming it's some... Okay, I haven't seen Into the Spider... Well, not Into the Spider-Verse, what's the new Spider-Verse thing? Across the Spider-Verse, thank you. I haven't seen the new one just yet. I haven't seen Across the Spider-Verse yet, even though I did that episode last week. But I can only assume they've included stuff like, the Mangaverse Spider-Man. And, like, Aranya's in there. And she was an Elseworlds thing that got wrapped up... whatever it's called, Marvel. Yeah, it was Elseworlds. What If is Marvel's thing. She was a What If thing that got tied into her own Reader's Digest Spider-Man thing, her own universe. She was in, like, L.A., and then somehow found herself in New York being Spider-Girl.
See, we're already there. Perfect.
We're already there. So yeah,
now the series I'm writing, which is...
No.
Yeah, it's the goddess blessed me, and I got transported to another world, and now I'm Worf's wife. Gonna be airing on Paramount next year.
Okay, cool.
Excited to announce. Still no Michael Dorn. Sorry, buddy.
You want
to have your own Worf series, but we needed a young Worf for it.
Oh yeah, you can't have an old Worf to fall in love with. I agree. I just want I want an isekai that's like, the genius the genius science officer and like my husband William Riker. That's all I want.
No, I'm not a Riker guy.
Nobody really should be, but
I do think Jonathan Frakes does some very good directing, though.
I do like Jonathan Frakes. Yeah, it's got a weird tongue. Anyway,
does he?
Yeah,
I've never noticed.
Play that casino game he's in.
I'd rather not. Casino games are bad. I'm just gonna say it universally.
Yeah.
But Strange New Worlds, it's good. I like it so far. One season so far. Second season starting. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll come back and go, boy, that show fell off they sure Game of Thrones the ending of that, and it's terrible, and don't watch any of it.
Oh man. Look, nobody. Okay, there's no way they can do a Game of Thrones ending. Like, there is a way, yes, but anybody who's running these shows should not allow a Game of Thrones season 8 to happen, especially on a Star Trek. Especially then.
They did Star Trek Enterprise. What do you? They basically already
it
Game of Thrones.
Better halfway through the series. It's not good.
That show got worse as it went along, and they did the whole whatever it was. The like,
whatever.
Oh, here's this here's the air aliens and the water aliens and the ape that that show sucked as it went along.
Oh, it was still bad. It got better, but it was still bad.
For some reason, they made the half Vulcan lady always wear like glittery face paint.
Yes, that was weird. That was weird.
Yeah, I don't know why she was always glittery.
They never got rid of the theme song.
I hate that theme song. It's so bad radio rock. Yeah. But Strange New Worlds, I do suggest to fans of Star Trek, and I think even people who generally aren't big into Star Trek, the way that this is writing, where it is a little more fun, I would say. And I don't mean that it's trying to be a comedy, but it has more modern sensibilities in its writing. It wants the characters to feel less stiff, and it wants them to feel more how actual people would be written, how actual. I mean, most of the crew are humans, so how humans would be. Mm-hmm. That's really all I have to say about it. So why don't you tell people where to find us?
All right, then. I will. You can go to our Twitter page, which is at EIFNAR. That's where you can yell at us about how much you love Star Trek and how much my opinions on Star Trek is bad. I will agree with you vehemently. I have very few opinions on Star Trek. They're not like, yeah, okay, it exists. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, maybe hit up Hassan about Strange New Worlds, because you seem to know much more about that since you have watched it and I have not. Also, just not generally a big Star Trek guy. Yeah, let's see. You can also go to our Spotify, iTunes, YouTube page, and go and share our podcast around, and maybe tell your friends about our show. And they can take the show and they could send it through a transporter, which essentially breaks you down molecular and reassembles you on the other side. Is this podcast still really truly the thing that you had sent, or is it not? Is it a brand new entity? To ask that question.
Podcast's not a physical thing. I don't know how you send it through a transporter. And I guess you could technically transport sound waves, so I guess it's possible.
Philosophy. Anyway, you should also go to our friends over at DJDane.com. That's the guy that does our music, DJDane.com. Go there, listen to his great tunes, and just maybe make him a star captain.
I don't think he has the training.
I think he'd be surprised.
I feel like he's going to end up with a lot of blood on his hands in that situation.
Maybe. But I mean, that's not my problem.
No, alright, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, go ahead and do it then. Yeah, not a problem.
That's right. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another Ashirioid episode of Everything is Finally is Ruined. See ya.
See ya.